Hi, everybody. We are back live. We got a little combo show today, Jerry Brown.
Yes, we're going to mix it up real good today.
Yeah, we got a wrap-up of the Midsummer Classic, and we're going to show you the new stat leaders, now 3 legs into the Chicago Summer Series. And then we're going to also do a preview show for the Class A No Glove National Championship, named after Tom Czarnik. And so we got a lot of stuff, a lot of ground to cover.
I'm ready to cover it. Let's get going.
Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to show you this updated team standings. And you can see the points on the left. I'm going to enlarge the teams now so that you guys can get a good look at the top teams. So Flashback sitting pretty, number 1 ranked team right now in the Summer Series.
Most deserving.
Yeah, well, they've been the most consistent. They won a tournament, they were in a championship, and they finished 4th. And so that gets reflected in the standings. 45s holding on in second place currently. Signature, big jump. They've been climbing steadily throughout the year. They find themselves in 3rd. Circus has dropped down to 4th place in the standings. High Y at 5, Moneyline at 6, March, surprise team, checking in at 7.
Yeah, but we talked about this before, if you remember correctly, in our last show, that I did say or mention to you that if someone had a great tournament, they can catapult themselves up from like 12 to 5 or whatever the case may be. And March is that team. And March and the other team, Signature, are the team that took the big jump to me.
Well, you know, March has been, I caught a little grief the other day at Forest Park. Joe, who kind of helps Tommy with the book and managing or coaching or whatever he does there, he said, can you stop telling us that we're like sneaky good? He's like, we're just good. And
okay.
and they're getting there. They've been very competitive. They've beaten a couple of major teams. They've been hanging around in tournaments, and so that kind of reflects in the fact that they've climbed up there to the 7th slot. Now, right on their heels is Hex. Hex, I believe, is only maybe 1 or 2 points below them, point-wise, but they've finished. They're in the top 8. And it'll be interesting because we know what's coming out shortly at Forest Park.
Oh.
We'll see if they put any weight or credence into what we're doing here, but we'll see. And then we got, just rounding it out, Whale, Shooters, BTA, and Fat Kids. And I think the surprise there is BTA hanging around at 11.
Yeah, you wouldn't think BTA would be in that 11th spot. You'd think they would probably catapult to a top 4 or 5 team ranking on talent, but just things haven't clicked so far with them this year. But it's not, like we said before, and we'll say it again, it is never too late to make that massive jump, make that leap into one of the top 3 spots.
We got one event left. I don't know if there's enough points for them to win the Summer Series, but they could certainly advance. And I think I'm going to show the leaders again so you can kind of see the spread point-wise there. And I'll blow that up so everybody can maybe get a little better look. Flash at 137.
Whoa!
They're 31 points ahead of the second place team. Then we got 100. So the top 3 teams are over 100. And then we get down to 82, 76, 64. Then we see another little drop off, 43, 42, and we get down by Hex and March. So, again, but Flash, 45, Signature, Circus, and High Y, they've all been in either a championship or a top 4.
Yeah.
So that's going to reflect because you get bonus points for those place finishes. And so it's been interesting. March doing very well right now. Sometimes it can be a little deceptive, Jerry, because if you don't look at the bracket and see who teams are beating, sometimes the team can hang around in the winner's bracket, win a few games where they get 5 points versus the losers where they get 2 points, and that can inflate your numbers. And then when you go back and you look at it in more detail, you go, okay, this team has points, but are they beating major teams?
Okay.
Are they just beating teams that you would expect them to beat? So, when we do the final major list after the No Glove, we dive into all of that. We look at the points. That's our rough outline. Mm-hmm. And then what we'll do is we'll look at the bracket. Most of us have watched these teams all summer, so it's a little bit of the eyeball test. And we try to come to a consensus over who should be on the major list or not.
I totally agree with you.
So let's get into some fun stuff. The stats. Again, the amount of at-bats necessary to qualify went up again. You now need 32 at-bats in order to qualify for the batting championship. And sitting on top, Wes Shannon.
I'm not shocked. Not surprised.
586.
586?
686.
Thank you. Don't take none away from him.
He had dropped down a little bit after the North-South, but he cranked it up. I think he was something crazy like 7 for his first 7 with a walk, and then you mentioned it to me and put the Malouk on him, and he made it out.
So now you're tossing me under the bus. Now I get tossed 100%. Under the bus. Okay, I did mention it to you, but he did make a good statement. He's back where he should be, and that's the number 1 slot. Moving on. Danny Marston, the youngster from Signature 602. Was he the MVP?
He was also the MVP.
Congratulations, Danny.
Danny Marston, good kid. Never played on Mudville, but I recruited him. And Danny has really done a great job since he's gone over to Signature. You never know how a kid is going to react, but he did play 1 year with the 45s, so he was exposed to being on a good major team. And those few years at Impact, he kept getting a little better. And this kid is a bona fide major level talent.
Yeah, he is. I got a quick question, and I want to, since I was watching the NBA draft yesterday, and I noticed the influx of teams taking younger players who aren't NBA ready as opposed to taking older players, which 22 and 23 is considered old, but they're taking those players who those players have dropped and slid down. Now, my question to you is, should a younger player go major, or should a younger player work their way up and go A, strong A, mid-major, then major? How would you approach that? What suggestions would you give a younger player who's talented but may not crack a signature, may not crack a 45 or a flashback or a BTA lineup?
Well, I think, one, it depends on the kid, because every kid, they're not all at the same stage. You might take 3 20-year-olds, and athletically they might have the athleticism, but as far as playing softball, they haven't honed the skills yet. So I think it depends on where in the kid's development and growth he is at that particular point in time when the big team is recruiting him. And then I do believe playing time is important. I think if you're going to come and sit the bench and you're not going to get swings and you're not going to, be on the field, I don't know if sitting on the bench helps you. You'll learn stuff if you're paying attention, but nothing beats doing when it comes to, because it's not just learning how to cut, catching the ball. A lot of it is just knowing what you as an individual can do. Like, for example, when I had AJ Koya, he was 21 years old, and we used to preach throw to the right base, throw to the right base. Well, AJ was a center fielder, and he was so quick getting to the ball, but like he wouldn't try to throw a guy out at third. He would throw the ball to second. And, I had to encourage him. I used to tell him, AJ, you're looking right at the plate. If that guy just hit the bag or just turned the bag,
take a shot
with your arm, you're going to throw him out if you make a good throw. I said, so he started to do it. He kind of learned where his limits were, how far out he could be and still throw accurately and get a guy. And there was a period there where he was throwing 19, 20 guys out a season. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
And then everybody stopped running on him. But, you know, so that's an example where you can't learn what your limitations are without playing.
Okay.
And so for me, I think it depends on the kid. I think, you know, like Jeff Mastari came from the hard way. He's fitting right in with the 45s.
Boy, is
and he doesn't look like a young player.
No, he does not. He looks very seasoned.
Right.
Looks very seasoned.
But, you know, yesterday was out at Forest Park, and I was talking to Greg Fleming, and he pointed out an outfielder on the Pharaohs. And he said, what do you think of the guy? And I said, well, he's very athletic, he's fast, he looks like he's going to be a good player, but he's not there yet. Now, if that kid was to go to flashback, high Y, is he going to play or is he going to sit?
Not going to play for Dan Dispenza, so that's a big...
Well, right. So, you know, that's what I mean. So I think each kid's a little different, but I think when you're young, you want to play. You want to play as much as you can. You want to put yourself in situations where you get tested and you learn what you can and can't do. So let's head back to the
Thank you for that little
numbers.
insight.
Right. Hitting 603rd, Brian Korenkowski from Circus.
Chippy.
Don't call him that.
I'm so sorry. It's a Freudian slip. Brian, sorry.
Yeah, you know, I don't want them to send in the mom because you'd be in big trouble.
I don't want to get in trouble. No moms.
At number 5, not a surprise, Kevin Duff from Circus, 588.
Not at all.
And number 5, Nate Mercado, 45s, 574.
Woo!
So, and Nate's really picked it up the last couple of tournaments. By Nate's standards, I thought he got off to a little bit of a slow start, but he's starting to really get it into high gear.
I thought his leg was hurt. He pulled a hamstring or something, or quad, or some lower leg.
Foot.
Oh, it was his foot. Okay.
Yeah, he hurt his foot. I saw him the other day, yesterday. Looked like he got a brand new pair of shoes, and he looked like he was moving a little better. So, you know, maybe it was a footwear or whatever, but he's starting to look like the Nate Mercado we've seen the last, decade or so.
Yeah.
So
that's trouble for everybody else.
It sure is. So now we go to the hit leaders, and who's at the top now? New leader, Danny Marston with 50.
Woo.
So 3 tournaments, he's got 50 hits.
That's some hitting.
That tells you.
That is some hitting.
Oh yeah.
But it tells me another thing too. That and nothing against Signature. You might have went to losers bracket because you got about 5 extra games over everybody.
Oh, sure. They I think they played something like 9 over the weekend.
9 in losers bracket?
Well, they lost their first game and then they came all the way back.
Okay, that's about 9.
And the interesting thing is, we hear people all the time say, "Oh, nobody ever comes out of the losers bracket."
That's not no.
Hall of Fame at the clincher lost their first game, and they had to grind their way through, and that was a weird bracket because it was a 3-game guarantee.
Okay.
So they ended up being 10-1 in that tournament, and that's a lot of games.
That's a lot of games.
And Signature, Hall of Fame, they got lucky because the tournament was broken up, and they didn't have to do that in one day.
Okay.
So it does really make a difference. Then we got Mark Menizzi. He's got 34 hits, and Mark has been, he's been, for a guy that had to replace Kevin Duff at second, I don't know how a lot of guys would necessarily handle that kind of pressure.
You really don't replace the Kevin Duff, but he sure stepped up big time, and now they haven't lost or skipped a beat without Kevin Duff and with him in there.
Right, and that's a credit to Mark, his work ethic, and, if you know Mark and Matt, you know their father, Mr. Menizzi, they're a hard-nosed, old-school kind of a crew. And it's been showing up in the fact that Mark just, he's playing better now than when he was at Impact.
Yeah, I think they moved him from the first hole to the second slot in the batting order.
Yeah, they did. They put Danny Marston in the lead.
Okay, that's what I noticed.
Yeah, and so that's a good 1-2 punch, needless to say. And then pulling up the rear, if you will, number 5, Spencer Mahoney with 33. So, Spencer hits third. So think about this.
So you're looking at 83 hits between two. Hold on. What did
you got Marston with 50 leading
50.
off. You got Mark in second, 34. That's 84. And then your third place hitter's got 33.
Wow.
So
100 plus hits.
It's a lot of hits for your top 3 guys, and that's why, and it's interesting because when your top 3 or 4 guys are hitting like that, it takes all the pressure off of everybody that comes after.
Yeah.
And hitting is contagious, just like non-hitting is. And as we saw in the 2 championship games last weekend, one guy made an error, another guy made an error. Both infields, Flash and Signature, struggled. And some of the better infielders we got in the game, they were all having trouble picking up the ball. And it all starts from when one guy makes it.
The next guy makes it.
It's like a virus. It spreads.
Pass it on.
Right. So those were your hit leaders. Now we're going to get to the RBI guys. And the guy that's really popped up, had a magnificent weekend from Signature, Chris Jordan. He's leading the pack at 29 now as far as RBIs go. Timmy Koronkowski still hanging around. He was the leader for a while. He's got 25 RBIs.
Okay.
From Circus. Anthony Scarlatta, Signature, 25 RBIs. So Spencer Mahoney, he's got 2 Jackrabbits on base in front of him all the time, 25 RBIs. And another guy who's really taken the jump well, Greg Fleming, has got 24 RBIs.
Yeah,
so,
Greg is really taking the leap and catapulted up. This being his first year with Signature, I thought there'll be a little bit of a learning curve or an adjustment period, and I haven't seen it. I haven't seen much of it, and he's really stepped up really well this year. He's had a solid season thus far.
He really has, and Greg is a very enthusiastic kid. He's very upbeat. He wants to get better. And, I talked to him a little bit. He said, well, I got to get my batting average up a little bit. He's like, it's the only thing I've been kind of a little short in my game. He doesn't have a bad batting average, but he'd like to get it up a little bit more. But from the production standpoint, we're going to see his name again in these stats. He is definitely getting big hits, beat out the ground ball against the 45s in the North-South. It allowed Dave Navarro to score from second as they walked the 45s off to get to the championship game.
Well, I'm so sorry for cutting you off. Go ahead, please. Another thing I noticed about Greg, his defense has picked up since he's moved from, where was he at, right field first or center field?
Well, they tried him in center, they tried him in right, but,
He's a left fielder.
He's a left fielder.
And since he moved to left field, I've seen a little bounce back to his step.
Yeah, he's just, he's more comfortable there.
Yeah.
And he gets good reads. He knows what players do when they go to that part of the field. And he's just done a really nice job. So we're going to take a brief break, show you our 2 anchor sponsors for the Summer Series, Sweet Buzz and Gold Rush. But, of course, when you come out to the events and you see the banners, make a mental note. Please support the people that support the SSA and 16-inch softball. So now we're going to get to the home run leaders. And there's Greg Fleming checking in with 4, along with Jeff Mastari, who's jumped up there. And the third guy that's got the 4 home runs, I want to talk a little bit about Chris D'Agostino.
Oh, wow.
He hit 4 home runs over the weekend.
One of my favorites.
3 of them were 3-run bombs. So you talk about production and coming up with big hits. Chrissy certainly did that, but even back from the Roadrunner days, Chris has always been a fantastic offensive player. He runs, he's left-handed, he puts a lot of pressure. And when he hits home runs, he's not trying to go over the top. He'll hit that line drive into a gap, and he's so fast, he's gone.
Yep.
And so, pretty interesting. A couple of new names, Chris Jordan and Chrissy D'Agostino. you know, or I'm sorry, I missed, not Chris Jordan did check in with 3, sorry. And of course, Chris Stout wasn't around much last weekend. He still has the 3.
And he's with Moneyline.
He's with Moneyline.
Okay, yeah.
Correct. So, you know, what I like about this list is, you know, Dags has got a little mileage on him, but Chris Jordan, not that old, Stout, not that old, Starry, not that old, and Greg, not that old.
Right.
And we were talking a little bit during the weekend that there are really a lot of really good young players playing the game right now, more than I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's their turn now, and they're bringing everything up in the rear, and they're forced to be reckoned with, and those are the players that we have to look for in the future to do something with, to stop them and encourage them to keep going.
Yeah, and so that's always a good thing to see. Younger kids breaking into some of these numbers. We get to triples, Spencer Mahoney with 5, and then we got Ryan Russ with 4, Mike Manzella with 4, and then we have PJ Raines and a new face from the shooters, Jake McTeague, checking in with 3 triples. And Jake is a real young guy, hangs out with Bill and Marla, who run Steady Drizzle, and they run a lot of co-ed stuff.
Does Jake play first base?
Yeah, he's the big kid.
Yeah, okay.
He's got the curly hair. It was during the dome, it was like a weird pink color or whatever it was. But so he's a little
Rotman, huh?
He's a little free-spirited, but you know, Jake is another guy. Loves softball, wants to get better, and so far being very productive. So that's going to bring us to our double leaders. Danny Dispenza, still leading the free world with 14.
He's still hanging on. He's still stacking them.
He's still stacking them. Then we got Matt Menizzi, that's Mark's brother. He's got 11. And then we get a couple of familiar faces. Kevin Duff with 10, Spencer with 9, and Curtis with 8. Curtis Ostrom from Hex.
So that led us to have out the top 5. I think there are 3 out of the 5 are left-handed. Do you find that being a decided advantage?
It does. I mean, you're a step and a half closer to first, and you know, if you're a lefty and you can run and you run hard out of the box, you know, the possibility of you being able to get a few more doubles is increased.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. But you know, we're starting to see a little bit of trend with these statistics. Guys like Spencer and Kevin and these guys that are in the top 5 in multiple categories. And, you know, I think at the end of the year when we have the managers vote on things like MVPs and things like that, it's going to be pretty interesting, I think.
They're going to have a tough choice. I don't, wow, they got a tough selection. And there's really not a wrong person to pick. It's like about 6 of them. 6 players out there that's really playing really well all year round, but you know they got to make the choice.
Well, and again, you know, sometimes stats can be a little deceiving in the sense that, you know, Signature played a lot of games, so the guys racked up some numbers. You know, Circus, when they made it to the championship of the TOC, they played quite a few games, and their guys statistically had more opportunities. Now, the interesting thing is some of these guys have got a ton of at-bats. You know, for example, Danny Marston's got 50 hits, so he's got way more than 50 at-bats.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And there are guys, you know, Tommy from the Fat Kids still got a great average, but he was 2 at-bats short. Ooh. So, you know, if the Fat Kids want to help Tommy out, they got to win a couple of more games and get him a few more at-bats.
Get a few more swings.
Right, so it's always interesting. So we'll show you the graphic again with our sponsors. And, you know, while we, you know, let's click off of the bracket for a second. But I thought the North-South was a pretty good tournament. A little surprised. Chucks went, I think, 2 and out. So, you know, I'm sure they're a little frustrated with their performance. I think a lot of expectations being placed on that team. So we'll see. I'm still fairly confident they're going to get invited to the No Glove, and I'd like to see that Hall of Fame team get invited because I think they're a good group and they are a pretty good softball team. They just couldn't make it in for the midsummer. But so I thought that the midsummer was a real good event. I thought that we saw a lot of good softball, we saw a lot of good young players, and Patty Caputo did a great job. They had Manny doing food, they had Joey Casa doing food, they had the Italian guy, the ice guy out here.
Who I know by first name, and now he's my best friend. But continue.
You know, they had the beer truck out here, and you know, we got beat the rain on Saturday, and the weather was good the other nights, and I thought it was a well-run, well-played tournament. I'd like to thank the teams. I thought they behaved well. Even in the heat, everybody was doing what they were supposed to do. And, of course, Richie Arico, he got here at 3 a.m. on Sunday after all that rain on Saturday, and you couldn't even tell it rained.
No, he's amazing. If there's one person that takes pride in their craft, is Mr. Richie Arico. I have coined him the GOAT.
There you go. So now we're going to get to the SSA Tom Egg Czarnik Class A National No Glove National Championship Tournament. And that's going to start tomorrow up at Olympic Park in Schaumburg. It's going to run through Sunday, and it should be a great time. We're watching the weather. We may put something out. I know we talked about having a home run contest and a bag contest. If we get bad weather, we may have to wipe that out.
Yeah.
We don't want to do it, but we'll put up some info if anybody wants to sign up for that. They certainly can. That would occur Saturday at 7 p.m. Last game is scheduled for 5:30, and it's going to be a nice opportunity just to hang out and enjoy, the softball community.
Well, I want to say on a side note, the summer series pilot experiment has been an excellent thing. It's been great for softball. The stats, the scorekeepers, everything. This has accelerated everything into the point where we can actually have some good competitive rivalries and have some stats being kept and everything like that. It's been a good thing. It's nothing. I hope we continue to do it next year, and it'll be a thing that'll be an annual thing.
Well, that's the plan, and these guys will be able to have statistics later on. If they want to try to get into the hall or whatever, they'll have some objective evidence. And I think some of the younger guys are really getting into it because we have gotten a lot of compliments about it, and I think it's doing exactly what it was intended to do. It's getting people to look at our game a little different.
Oh, yeah. I got stopped. I had my fourth Italian ice. Got dropped the first 3. When I had my fourth Italian ice, the guy would say, "Hey, man,
dropped it right into the mouth."
Well, it went somewhere. And the guy said to me, "Hey, you do the show with Gio." I said, "Yeah, I do the show with Gio." I got a couple of hits I have nothing to do with the scorekeeping. So just right there is showing you this thing is bringing a lot of attention.
Yeah, they are. They're watching it, and they're enjoying it, and that's the important thing. So we get to this bracket here, and this is the upper quarter of the bracket. So we got Future and Traffic, winner gets Goodwood. Trash Pandas and Los Borrachos, winner gets Splash. So Future, a few years back, they won the Class B National Championship tournament. It was actually the first tournament they ever got into as a group.
Okay.
They got some good players. They just have a tendency not to be able to get them out to play. So I'm going to be curious to see them. I believe they got into the North-South. I didn't really get a chance to watch them that weekend, but they do have some guys that are good, solid players. Traffic, we've commented before, very young team, still learning how to play. They show you flashes. I like their group. They're athletic looking, and I think Nicky is on his way to creating the next really good traffic team. Goodwood, they had some success. They beat Chucks in the North-South. They made it to Sunday, and I think they're definitely a threat to maybe win this tournament. Trash Pandas, we saw a lot of them over the winter in the Intentional Sports Dome, run by Steve Rodriguez, who also runs Los Barachos. So that's going to be no secrets between Trash Pandas and Los Barachos. And Los Barachos, they swing the bats pretty good.
Yes, they do.
So that'll be a very competitive, I think, interesting, hard-fought game. And then, of course, they feed into Splash. Splash normally plays in everything. They did miss one of the events, I think, this summer, and they lost a few players. So, we'll see what Marky Robinson can dial up this coming weekend, and hopefully see Splash kind of get back to it. A couple of years ago, I thought that they were on the verge of becoming real good. They lost Sean Quinn and a couple other players, and it's kind of slowed the development of that group down a little bit.
So what I can say about this bracket, what I like about this bracket is every team in this bracket has played tournament ball. So it shouldn't be any, they should be tournament tested. They've been tournament tested. They're tournament ready. And I want to make a side note. My player of the bracket is, unfortunately, I don't know his name, but he's the left fielder for Los Barachos. Los Barachos. Los Barachos. He's the left fielder for Los Barachos. I don't know his name, but I have him as the player of the bracket. And this should be very interesting bracket because everybody in this bracket, like you said before, has played tournaments, has won a tournament, has beat on each other all winter, and that's going to be very competitive to watch.
Yeah, I think so. But, to be honest with you, I think it's going to be a highly competitive tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you said, Goodwood, Fat Kids, they're the favorites. But, in these types of tournaments, you never really know. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully Mother Nature smiles on us and we're okay. So that'll go next to the upper lower. And we got the Dirty 38s against Steady Drizzle. Winner gets Dice. And then we have Bankroll playing Menace with the winner getting Hardwood. And this is an interesting bracket. The Dirty 38s are a pretty good team. They do not like to play with the mitts. They do like to play in these no-glove events. If I'm not mistaken, this might be the first event that they got into this summer.
Oh, okay.
And they have a player, Julian, the shortstop, that, everybody was kind of on him during the offseason. The rumor was he was going to be leaving. He might go to High Y, and there was all kinds of speculation, but he ended up back with the 38s. And so Alan Osinski, who runs that team, terrific guy. Another team very close. When they go to a tournament, they'll hang out, they'll have a tent, and they'll stay. And just a real good, fun group there. Steady Drizzle, Marla and Bill, who help the SSA out once in a while. They also run a lot of co-ed. Talked to Marla today. She said that, they're going to have all their guys there and that they picked up a couple of players since last year, and she feels like they're going to be very competitive. She is a female manager.
And a pretty good one, too, I might add.
Yeah, she knows a lot about softball. She's demanding in the sense that, she has discipline on her teams, and she's also a little bit of a mother hen. She looks after her. She's got a lot of younger people on that team. And Dice, you might be able to talk a little bit more about Dice.
Dice come out of Washington Park, and they also play some games in Alsop. And They're led by a gentleman by the name of Art. Art's their coach, and another guy, Kevin. I think Kevin Owens. We call him Doc. And Dice is a very sneaky good team, and you have to watch out for them. So they play good with the glove, without the glove, when all their guys show up. So that's my. I'm not giving you the whole scout report, but that's my scout report on Dice. And that's the passing it back to you.
Okay, and then we get to this little bottom portion. Bankroll Menace feeding into Hardway. Of course, Bankroll, interesting roster. Matty Dozen, who runs Moneyline, also runs Bankroll. And they've got a lot of older guys approaching 60 on that team, but they also got some younger kids. Matty's stepson and a couple of guys that actually played with me on Mudville are on that team. And, you know, they're a good, solid group. The only question with them is, you know, can they stay clean? Can they not wear out those older guys like Johnny Pellegrino and Dave Bradle and people like that who, you know, they've been around the block more than once and got a lot of mileage on the tires. So
True.
That's the only thing you worry about them. Menace has been a good team for a while. And
I think they're in second or third place in Clyde Park this year.
yeah, and they're an example of a team that, you know, I think they're off to a little bit of a slow start.
Okay.
But they're competitive. They're not afraid.
No.
And I think now maybe playing in this tournament where they're playing teams that are, you know, at their level more, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have a good weekend. And then, of course, you got Hardway, which is where Jeff Mastari came from. And we saw a little bit of him out in Harrison Park. They got a couple of nice.
I saw a lot of it about Harrison Park. He hit one so far, guys. That's not fair, Jim. That's not fair.
Well, of course, he won't be playing this weekend. Either will Nate. But they got some other guys on that team that can play. Jimmy DeVito doing a nice job bringing these kids along and getting them into these events. So it'll be interesting to see how Hardway plays this weekend. So now we go to the lower part of the bracket where we got 40 Deuces Fat Kids, and they're going to feed into the Snappers, West Side Outlaws, Playmakers feeding into Sauce. And Francisco Arenas, of course, runs 40 Deuces, and the Fat Kids currently being run by Anthony Mysek. And, you know, the Fat Kids are a good A team, and you know they're capable of winning the event. Francisco 40 Deuces, it looks like they're playing a little bit better. They're scoring a few more runs, so that'll be an interesting ball game. And then of course the Snappers, Jerry D'Amico runs that team, and Jerry's been running that team for forever. And you know they're usually in the A stuff. Very competitive.
Very.
The only thing is they got a lot of first responders, so you never know who's going to get called in and who isn't. But when they got their whole group there, they're certainly competitive, and so I'm going to be curious to see them a little bit this weekend. We go to the bottom half. You got West Side Outlaws, and you got the Playmakers feeding into Sauce. Of course, the Playmakers are out of Oak Lawn. Jeff Salmon runs them. West Side Outlaws, I'm getting more familiar with them because they've played in a couple of events outside their comfort zone. So it'll be interesting to see. It seems to me that attendance is the key for the West Side Outlaws.
Yeah, I think that might be the case. But if they do show up, and hopefully they will, they have a player. They have a multitude of players, but there's one particular player that sticks out. He's a first baseman. I think his name is Alex.
Okay.
He's look like he could play for the NBA draft. He's about 6'4", and maybe 6'5", and he doesn't miss many balls over there. And he's going to be, if he keeps it up and keep his head down, keep grinding, he's going to be one of those up and coming stars we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Does he moonlight on occasion with the Pharaohs?
No. You're speaking of Marcus.
Okay, yeah, they had a tall.
No, that's Marcus.
Okay.
Marcus Webb.
Yeah, because he looked like he was an athletic kid too. That, big size at first base, made a real nifty play yesterday. So, that's what I'm talking about. There's so many of these younger kids now playing. It's
very good players. Very good players coming up. Very good players ready to make that next jump, and softball's in good hands.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully they'll stay on a good path and keep working. And then we got Sauce, of course. They really upgraded this year. Man, they have lost a lot of tough games, man. But they're more than capable of ripping off 3 or 4 wins. And, we interviewed one of their guys, Mike Oliver. And, so they got some talent on that team. They're in that phase where they picked up guys, and I know it sounds weird because we're 3 big tournaments in, but I don't know if they've actually settled in and gelled
yet. Yeah. Well, I know that Mike Oliver's jailed, so the rest of them just follow his lead. They should be in good hands.
So now we're going to get to the lower quarter, last part of the bracket. And I'm not going to make you do too much predicting because your Oboes team is in the tournament.
Yeah, so I recuse myself from making a lot of comments from this portion of the bracket. Please, my followers, please forgive me.
I'm going to leave it at that. So you guys open up against Born Divine, so there won't be any secrets there.
No,
you're familiar with them. And have you played them this year at all?
No, but we played them in Clyde. They have a ton of speed, and they're led by a guy named Fino, and he should be nicknamed Phenomenal. So they're led by Fino, and they have a host of other good players. Danny Edwards, I can go on and on and on. And
Danny Edwards, former Solution guy.
Yeah, former Solution guy, still playing quality softball, and they have a couple other players. Eric. This is the other center fielder. I don't remember I forgot his name, but he's tremendous. I think his name is Kirk. He's very good, too. So they have a very good softball team from top to bottom.
Yeah, and it should be interesting because they have been playing some teams tough.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. And then they feed into a team, the Gravediggers, that play out in Westchester. Haven't seen much of them. So they're kind of a mystery in this bracket. So
that's scary.
Yeah.
You don't know who they are. They don't know who you are, and that's a real scary draw. I mean, especially with their nickname, we always know now. We know their occupation. So softball team, be aware.
Yeah, better hope it's not a full moon.
Yeah, hope it's a full
moon. And then in the bottom half, 10 deep prime time, and they feed into diesels. So 10 deep. They've been in everything so far this year. Excuse me. They got some good players. They played some solid softball, and they played Primetime, who lost a heartbreaker here last weekend. They jumped up 6-0, and they ended up losing a game. They just stopped hitting the ball. I forgot who they were playing in the midsummer, but Primetime is another example of a younger team that was on the verge of becoming a real good team, and then they lost a few guys.
Okay.
So Mike Cadella's doing a good job. He's keeping that group together, and that could be a pretty entertaining game, 10 deep in prime time. And the Diesels is a team that Pat Moran, who runs the Terry Moran softball tournament, named after his father, is on that team. And Pat, a super nice kid, and they got some decent players on that team as well. This could be a very entertaining little threesome.
Okay. Well, question. What do you think the major difference or noticeable difference between a tournament and a major tournament? Or you can say a player. Let's do it this way.
Well, I gave you my answer, but I can't repeat it.
No, we're not going to. We're going to go. What's the difference between an A player and a major player?
Well, back in the day, I would say commitment, but some of these major guys, they come and go as they please now. But when you get to an A tournament, I think that the great joy of an A tournament is that they don't run to chalk. In other words, it's very difficult to handicap an A tournament. You go to a major tournament and everybody will pick the top 4 or 5 teams to be there on Sunday or at the end. And a lot of times that's what happens. Now, we have seen new faces and new teams at the major level pop into the, Final 8, Final 4. But in the end, it seems like the major teams find a way to finish 1 through 5 or 1 through 6. But at the A level, you never know. Phil Coppersmith, who used to run Saga, came up to me one year in Carroll Stream. It might have been around our 9th, 10th year, whatever it was. And he said to me, "You know what the best tournament of the year is?" And I said,
"The Nationals."
I said, "No." And you know what he told me? He said, "This tournament, the Class A glove tournament that we run, National Championship at Carroll Stream," because he's like, "This is the Wild West, man."
Yeah.
He's like, "You have no idea who's coming out of a bracket, who's going to make a run."
Didn't one year, the Gladiators, a team out of Washington Park, lost their first game, came all the way back from losers bracket to play No Fear in the championship game, if I'm correct.
That is correct, and there's more to the story.
Oh, boy.
Half of their starting lineup didn't get to the first game because that was the first year we were in Carroll Stream. So
Okay.
A lot of people
got lost.
Well, they had trouble getting there. It was a longer ride than they thought. They were playing Friday night, the first game of the night, and so they fell way behind, and they couldn't come back from it. And then they literally steamrolled their way to the championship, and there were some great players on that team.
Yeah, a couple of them are on PTA.
Yeah,
Wesley Shannon's father's on there. Pito was on that team.
Wasn't Wes playing out there?
He could have been. I don't remember because I wasn't there that tournament. He could have been.
Yeah,
that could have been a start.
I thought Wes was playing that weekend with them, and he was young. I mean, he might have.
I think Treville and Darryl played too.
Yeah, Travell was on that team. So was Darryl.
Yeah.
And I mean,
they were young pups.
They were young pups, but that's not unusual. We see a lot of kids that play in that A tournament, and they go on and they become great major players.
Yeah.
And a lot of them get noticed. Justin Smikowski, the one year Danny Stramali asked me if I would help him out on a team he had in there called the Scrubs, which is morphed into Uncle Slams. And, Justin was on that team. And I remember Jibbs asked me, "Hey, does Danny got any good players?" I said, I know he's got one guy who's the real deal.
Yeah.
And Jibbs came out and actually saw him, and it took Jibbs a couple of years, but he stuck with it, and he eventually recruited him onto Flashback. And
the rest is history.
Yeah, and Justin's turned into a terrific major level player.
Yes, he is.
But that's kind of the difference. It's more competitive. We see more extra inning games. We see more walk-offs. We see, young guys that, literally explode onto the scene. So, this weekend, Carroll Stream, we have a lot of teams. The only event they play in all year is Carroll Stream.
Okay.
So we get a look at a lot of players, and then, 2-3 years later, we see them playing on a major team.
Oh, so this is their showcase.
It is. It really is. And, so to me, that's the joy of watching these B and A tournaments, is seeing new players and also how competitive they are, how passionate they are. They haven't been spoiled yet,
Oh.
So
they're green and young and innocent.
Yeah, maybe a little naive too. Now, all the major guys are gonna, be lighting up my inbox. But so that's what we got going on, folks. We're still going to be doing a lot of stuff. Our next Summer Series event is Joliet Labor Day weekend for the Men's Major National Championship Tournament, powered by Gold Rush Gaming. And That figures to be a real good tournament. I think Carroll Stream is going to be exceptional. Rumor is we might have 6 or 7 Iowa teams coming in for that. And of course, Iowa last year shocked everybody when they had both of the final 2 teams playing each other. First time the Chicago teams not been in a national championship game in 16 in softball history. You know, so softball is certainly on the rise, Jerry, and you know, we'd like to think the SSA had a little something to do with it.
I think the SSA had a lot to do with it. People like you and Patty and Tyler and all the people who do the behind-the-scenes grunt work that don't get appreciation. I want to say thank you.
Well, on their behalf, I'll say thank you. So that's going to wrap up this show. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out our Facebook page. Of course, I'll be all over the place live streaming. We got a lot of neat stuff coming up. We'll be doing some live streaming from the Nicky Lopez charity tournament. We'll be back at Papa Hops. And of course, we got the Class B National Championship tournament coming up mid-July. And I'll be at various parks, and I'm probably going to try to get out to a few new parks. Now that my tournament schedule isn't killing me, I'll be able to do a little more traveling and getting out. So if any of you are playing in a league anywhere and you've got a couple of good matchups coming up, feel free to shoot me a text or an email, and I'll see what I can do about fitting you all in and getting you guys on the air live. So on behalf of Jerry Brown, SSA Broadcast, Gold Rush Gaming, Sweet Buzz, George Bliss, and the rest of the broadcasting crew, this is Gio saying take care, be good, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Jerry?
My sentiments exactly. Be safe, be good, and be careful.